Mike White is not better than Zach Wilson. Full stop. End of story. You're on some fucking copium if you think that Mike White would have won yesterday versus the Lions. We are 2 weeks removed from a very similar game situation that Mike White had against an arguably better overall team. 2 weeks ago, Mike White went out and he played the Vikings. And we all fucking know what happened versus the Vikings. Mike White kind of played like dog crap. He completed just 50, I think it was 57% of his passes. He was 31 for 57. He had 369 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. One of those interceptions was the game losing interception that cost them the game. And people I see constantly talk about, oh, well, Braxton Berrios dropped the game losing touchdown. If Braxton Berrios just scores the touchdown, well, then they win the football game. If you go back and you watch the Braxton Berrios drop, Mike White does not put that ball in his chest. Mike White doesn't put it out, a little bit in front of him. He's kind of falling when he makes when he tries to make the throw or catch. He doesn't put that in position. He puts it on the back right shoulder. That's where he puts this ball. And Braxton doesn't come up with the ball. And instead of us blaming the poor ball placement for this throw, we blame it on Braxton dropping the ball. 2 weeks later, we are blaming Zach Wilson for losing to the Lions, even though a independent factor decided the game. Zuerlein missed the game-tying field goal. He shouldn't have even had to make that field goal because the defense blew a 40-plus yard touchdown that was supposed to be a 4th-and-inches conversion that turned into a touchdown. Where's this all-star defense that is supposedly carrying Zach Wilson? If you go back and you look at the Zach Wilson's performance and you look at the stats, the RBs were dog shit. They had 0 yards before contact. That is an actual stat that an actual NFL football team put up. 0 yards before contact were gained by the Jets running backs yesterday, as of filming this video yesterday. Subsequently, Zach Wilson was sacked 4 times and pressured on 47% of his throws. And he still managed to put up a respectable stat line against the Lions with 2 touchdowns. He had a pretty, I'll admit, he had a pretty bad interception where he got caught in what's known as Madden vision for quarterbacks, which is where you just kind of stare down your receiver. You just kind of stare down who you want to throw to, and if you have a decent defender, they'll look at that and they'll say, "Oh, he's staring the guy down. This is who he's going to throw to." So when they throw it, it typically leads to either pass deflection or a interception. That was really his one bad throw. But then you look at the clean throw that he had to Garrett Wilson in the first half, and then he follows that up by having a very clean rollout across the field to CJ Uzama, who breaks the tackle, takes that for a touchdown. And the other clean rollout also to Uzama on the short field that also resulted in a touchdown. And he would have had another touchdown if it weren't for a missed PI. So Zach Wilson goes out, plays a very solid game in spite of the team around him playing like dog shit, and people are still blaming Zach Wilson. It makes no fucking sense. Because you have Mike White, who goes out against the Vikings and loses, doesn't play good. He goes out against the Bills And while he doesn't, have the same performance against the Bills the last time where he threw like 4 picks against the Bills, he doesn't play great. He steps into throws that got his ribs fractured against that defense. He makes these constant throws that we criticize Zach Wilson. We criticize Zach Wilson when he'll like throw it into a contested ball when there's like a more open receiver. He's done that. Mike White has done that multiple times. Where he'll just throw it at the defender and hope the fucking receiver makes the play. And sometimes it works out. And you had the game, and looking back at the Vikings game, you had it where he threw it into a very tight window to Garrett Wilson. He breaks it for a 70-yard, gain. But then you have another play where he tries to force one to Davis, and it loses the football game. So here comes the question. What the fuck does Zach Wilson have to do in order for him to be considered the better guy? Because he's got more wins than Mike White does. Zach Wilson, after yesterday, is 5-3. Mike White is 1-2 with a pair of fractured ribs and ain't thrown a touchdown in 8 quarters. The last time he threw a touchdown was against a bottom 3 defense, a team that you are on the highest dosage of copium if you don't think that Zach Wilson could have thrown a touchdown given the same opportunities as Mike White. You cannot look at that performance, look at the field, look at what happened, and go, that is Zach Wilson's fault. And if you're going out and saying that is Zach Wilson's fault for what happened on that game, you're going to ignore what Robert Saleh said, criticizing the offensive line play, criticizing the poor running back play, criticizing the defense giving up the massive, like the most blown coverage scores of fucking all time. The punt return touchdown and the 40-yard 4th and inches touchdown. Like, things that just aren't Zach Wilson's fault. That happened, that are being put the blame, or that the blame is falling under because he's Zach Wilson and not Trevor Lawrence or running back McGee Justin Fields. Like, it makes no fucking sense. Is he Patrick Mahomes? No, he's not Patrick Mahomes. And nobody's expecting him to be Patrick Mahomes in year 2. But to go and to look at Justin Fields, who runs the ball more than he throws the ball, and be like, that's your guy. Yeah, that's your guy losing 10 games this season. 11 games if you count yesterday. He's 3-11 this season. Trevor Lawrence is a little better. He's been playing pretty good these past couple weeks. But Trevor Lawrence has a little bit of recency bias too. The Jags did not do well early on in the season. And people kind of forget about that because, oh, holy shit, Trevor Lawrence put up really good games against the Titans, and a really good game against the Titans, and a really good game against the Cowboys. Are willing to overlook his loss to the Eagles, his loss to the Colts, to the Texans. Like, you look at some of these teams that the Jags have lost to this season, and you start to have an aneurysm as to how the hell did they lose? Well, it's because Trevor Lawrence didn't play good in those games, but he's played really good in some of these other games. Like, he throws 4 touchdowns versus the Cowboys, but he threw 1 touchdown and was 54% passing against the Lions. It's ridiculous. And again, I'm not saying that Zach Wilson is a fully polished quarterback here. Nobody who is in the Zach Wilson corner is saying that he's a fully polished quarterback. But he's not an instant coffee quarterback. To use Robert Saleh's analogy, he is not. This is not the instant coffee quarterback here, where you have this team and you just throw in your instant coffee and it works. This is a guy that you gotta give him a little brew. You got your cream and sugar. You've got your Garrett Wilson and your Sauce Gardner. You got that good shit that's gonna lead to a good cup of coffee. But you cannot just keep throwing, who you hope to be is your instant coffee guy so that you can immediately use that cream and sugar. You can't just keep throwing shit at a wall and hope that it's going to work. The Chiefs took literal years to try and get a Patrick Mahomes level talent in quarterback. They went through multiple quarterbacks. People overlook the Trent Green era, the time that point in time when we thought Matt Castle and Brady Quinn were going to be the next big quarterbacks for the Kansas City Chiefs. We overlook those because, oh look, they got Patrick Mahomes, and then we discredit a guy like Mitchell Trubisky who didn't play terrible his first 4 years. He got them to playoff appearances. He would have won a game if it weren't for the infamous double doink to set up the Eagles to go on their Super Bowl run. But simply, he wasn't Patrick Mahomes. He wasn't instant coffee. He took longer to brew, and he didn't get any cream and sugar, any supporting cast outside of Allen Robinson, who really wasn't that fucking great going into the end parts of the train there, and certainly wasn't great last year. So here we kind of are in this situation where we gotta deal with the fact that not every quarterback that you draft, if you want to develop a team and develop a winning environment, you can't expect your quarterback to be instantly fucking amazing, especially when he gets taken in and out of games. Now he's winning games, he's won games, he's again 5-3, but you cannot you cannot conflate the quarterback's performance and the opportunities that he has been given. Before today, he averaged 23-ish attempts per game. If you discount the two pass games, he averaged 21 attempts per game, 60% passing, 173 yards. Not impressive numbers. They won't jump off the board. They're pretty game manager numbers. But that was the opportunities that he was given. He was not given the Mike White 43 attempts per game, 300 yards, which tend to track with fucking. It's just the stupid thing is it tends to track with Zach Wilson's own performance, where we saw Zach Wilson have his attempts nearly double, saw his yardage double, an increase in touchdowns, and he had that really bad interception throw on something that is very easily fixable for a quarterback. Something that he can just be like, "Oh, that was a very stupid mistake," and just not stare down the guy he wants to get the ball to. Now, people disagree with me on the Zach Wilson, situation. Personally, I think Zach Wilson can be a very good quarterback in the NFL. I don't have any faith in Mike White to be a good quarterback in the NFL. He's gotten his shot and it looks fucking terrible every time. He's kind of got the Fitz magic thing where he goes in, has one fairly solid game, and then looks like dog crap the rest of the time, which is even worse than Fitzmagic. At least with Fitzmagic, he got 4 games out of it before the fucking hinges fell off. So I think if the Jets play Mike White going forward, if the Jets go into the Jags game and they play Mike White, I don't think they win. I think the Jets lose. If I think the Jets lose out if they continue with Mike White. And while I don't know if the Jets will win out if they use Zach Wilson, I do believe wholeheartedly, looking at the game, looking at what the Jets have been doing, I think that Zach Wilson has a legitimate shot at taking the Jets to the playoffs this year. Now, whether that happens will be completely determinant on the Jets' performance, on Zach Wilson's performance, on the rest of the AFC's performance. Because right now they're on the fringe, so they could easily just get kind of shitted out by just teams passing them or teams just keep continuing to win. So that's kind of the situation that the Jets have left themselves in. And whether Zach Wilson would have beat the Vikings, whether Zach Wilson would have beat the Bills for the second time, we will never get to find out because Robert Saleh decided to play Mike White. But what we saw from Mike White was a guy who was willing to throw balls at the defenders, step into defenders' hits, which got him injured, which is, a no for your quarterback. And just overall in general, not play all too fucking great. That's the full stop. He just didn't play fucking great.